And here, Eric said to her, "What do you mean by that?" Then he touched her hair and said, "Don't you like it when I come to get you?" And Mesa, blushing, said, "It's not like that. Is it appropriate for me to waste your time when you're very busy?" And he looked at her in surprise, thinking to himself, "Waste my time?" Then she looked away and said, "No." Then she remembered him carrying her and saying, "When I'm with Eric, people don't say anything." But then she remembered what the maid, Gila, had said while cooking. "Is it appropriate for me to waste your time when you're very busy?" And the cook laughed and said, "It's okay. Sit down and have something before you go." And the other cook laughed and said, "The child has grown up so much, hasn't she?" And here she was making fun of Mesa because Gila carried her like a child. Then she said to him, "When I go out with Gila, we talk a lot about different things, and it was fun." And Eric turned away sadly and said, "I understand." And Mesa looked at him nervously, thinking to herself, "He seems unhappy." At that moment, Eric told her, "If you're going out with Gila, then why don't you put on some decent clothes first? It's true that you change your clothes a lot, but this time it's a bit excessive. So, I was wondering, is there a specific reason they make you wear such poor quality clothes?" Mesa looked at him in surprise, thinking to herself, "A reason?" Eric continued, "I would prefer to see you wearing better fabrics at least." Mesa thought to herself, "There is a reason." Their original plan was that if the Cladenier family members knew she was being treated poorly, they wouldn't see her as a threat, and they would quickly reveal their true intentions to her. She then remembered her maid, Malika, saying, "My lady," and she continued to herself, "Despite that, they still continue to address me by my title. Their intention must be to keep their resentment towards me." So she didn't tell Eric and said to him, "It's okay. I have to continue acting strangely anyway." Then she thought to herself, "Anyway, I'd rather not tell him about that." She continued, "I should dig under the Mygon tree again tomorrow. I don't want to ruin good clothes." She thought to herself, "I have to be careful with my words and actions." Then she remembered her brother, the king, and thought to herself, "Just in case, because I want to avoid saying anything that might unnecessarily provoke my brother." Eric took her hands and said, "I understand. So I will change your clothes to softer fabrics as well. And don't forget to bring the digging tools from now on. Don't dig with your bare hands." Mesa looked at him and thought to herself, "This is the first time someone has respected the work I always do against my will." Eric smiled at her and stroked her face, saying, "You seem to have gotten a bit of a sunburn. But you look healthier, and it's good to see that." Mesa blushed and thought to herself, "He even noticed the changes in me." Meanwhile, Eric said, "When I first met you, I was worried because you looked very pale and fragile, but now you're full of life." Mesa thought to herself, "I'm really enjoying the smell of the grass on this bright midday. I just hope my brother doesn't ruin this new peace I've found again." When Eric turned and noticed the gardener coming towards them, he said, "Ah, here comes the gardener." Mesa was startled and pretended to be silly, digging in the ground again. The gardener said, "My lord, my lady." Eric asked him, "Do you check the new nest every day?" "Yes," said the gardener. "I watch over these trees so that the birds aren't disturbed when they nest here. Don't worry, you'll see them right away if they build a nest here." Eric said, "You're as diligent as ever." "Thank you, sir," replied the gardener. Meanwhile, Mesa thought to herself, "Could it be that because he gave me a new life? His words often sound strange to me." When the gardener left, Eric said, "He's gone." Mesa whispered, "Eric, you know that man. Every time I dig here, he frowns. I think he really doesn't like me digging in the ground." Eric replied, "Mesa, sometimes if you dig that deep under a tree, no gardener in the world would like that." Mesa thought to herself, "He responds so firmly to my playful remarks." Eric continued, "But if he spoke rudely to you, that would be a completely different matter." Mesa thought to herself, "But his words never bothered me." Eric persisted, And of course I would punish you for such thing. Mesa looked at him and continued to think to herself, instead, I think he's like a prince straight out of a fairy tale. He's also wise, merciful, and just. Eric stood up and offered her his hand, saying, It's getting warmer, we should go inside now. The scene changed as he said to the maid, Edel, what do you mean by that? Edel replied nervously, I don't consider blind devotion and absolute loyalty to the head of the family to be true loyalty. I can only say that you're on the wrong path. Eric said, Tell me exactly what you want. Don't beat around the bush. Edel pressed her lips together nervously and said, All right, I think it's time for you to take a mistress and turn your attention away from the princess. Eric said in surprise, You're saying mistress? You're asking me to sleep with a woman I don't want. What kind of loyalty is that? Edel said, Young master, honestly, I don't really understand. You leave knightly matters to young Master Emperek and continue to spend time with the princess. What kind of relationship do you share with someone you can't even communicate with? Why give opportunities to the side branches who covet the position of successor? Why do you do this to women who loiter all day? You've neglected to take care of the princess. That's why she uprooted the garden seedlings out of boredom yesterday. She clearly ruined them. You're distracted by an immoral woman, young master. Yet you only focus on replacing these unproductive maids, and this situation makes me very worried. Eric was silent for a moment, then said, Didn't you say that yourself? You said there was something that seemed off about the maid Malika. So he asked his personal guard, Colin, Has she been neglecting her duties while spending time with the lady, apart from training the knights? Colin replied, Absolutely not. In fact, she recently solved the region's food shortage by handing over all the scrap metal taken as spoils to Marquis Hitav. He gratefully gave us enough food for several years. Iron is rare in Hitav's lands. They're known for their vast plains and advanced agriculture. Besides, we have 2 mines alongside Halleck's iron mine. But Edel said, Our region's blacksmiths lack the manpower to even repair our own weapons. Also, since Sir Emperek took over knight training, the knight's credibility has significantly decreased. Because of that, they compare you to him more after training, to the point where all the knights talk about it and think you're more suitable. Eric, all right, if there's anything else worrying you, speak up. You're in a difficult position now. You shouldn't hesitate. Edel, understood. I've been overseeing everything, young master. I've merely overstepped my bounds. She thinks to herself, He's always been someone who prioritizes tasks rationally. Edel thinks to herself, At this critical time with the succession approaching, he's always been by that woman's side, even neglecting his training. All because of that foolish woman who's muddling his judgment. Hila, you're here, headmaid. Is the young master not here? Edel thinks, Look at the young mistress. Isn't she utterly lovely? Even the lady herself is enchanted by her. She recalls a past incident where the lady had been angry with Misa's maids. If you've come here to watch, then simply do so. Don't dare to speak of unnecessary actions. Edel thinks to herself, But from a certain point, she seems to lose her logic a lot when dealing with her, just like she used to deal with her daughter, Lady Rosine. Misa takes off a necklace and laughs. Hila, Oh, my young mistress. Edel thinks, What am I to do about this? The young master and the mistress, it can't be denied that neither of them are in their right minds because of this woman.